Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Hamilton, and this is the MAP community. I'm so glad all of you are here. It has been such a busy week, and I'm so glad to see everyone. And Sally's here. Good. Yay, you got back. This is such an important discussion tonight because there have been two or three things that have come across my desk, and I've reached out and actually had the people who I reached out to reach back to me. So, one of my pet projects, for lack of a better word, is to find a way to build a community to help people who need help with their pets short term, long term. Now, everybody here knows that MAP stands for Make a Plan, Appoint Caregivers, Address the Needs of Your Pet, and publish that plan. And if we can find a way to put together a community that can help each other, even if it's just short term, that would be great. So over the week, I put out a video that I was trying to pull up here, but it wouldn't work. So I apologize. But some of you might have seen it on my Facebook page. It was a little girl who she and her mom were in a domestic violence situation, and she had a cat. And they had to go to a special place so that they could get away from domestic violence, but they had to leave the cat somewhere. So there was this foster who you never got to see her face, but she picked up the cat, she took the cat, she cared for the cat. And then when the mother and little girl found footing and found housing and were settled, the cat was returned to the little girl, which made a huge difference. And I said, my God, this is something that I really need to work on. The only unfortunate thing is that it's in England, this program that they're doing where they have fosters for domestic violence is in England. So I reached out to all of my colleagues because I have many of them in the domestic violence arena, because conflicts over animals sometimes occur as part of a domestic violence situation. So I reached out to a number of my friends, and I'm now in contact with two or three people to try to build a foster community for people who need immediate attention for their animals. I was on the phone with two people who have horses, and they all said to me, nobody ever thinks about our animals and nobody ever considers them. And I said, that's why you have to be so much more proactive than people with dogs and cats. They said, because with dogs and cats people with dogs and cats, really have it a heck of a lot easier than people with horses and parrots and reptiles, like we talked about last week. So I'm going to check in with everyone, but I'd love to get your thoughts, because I think there is a way as a grassroots that the MAP community can talk about and build a foster community among our colleagues and the people we know. Because I know a lot of you have connections with rescues, have connections with different ASPCAs and animal care and control, and even breed clubs. Because I think that if we could create a fostering program that, there's so me, the lawyers now rearing its ugly head in the back of my head. If we could make sure that we created a program that could be watched and supported, that would be important, because I'd hate to have my new dog, Stella, who has been a bit of a trial and tribulation. I'd like her to go to someone and then be safe, and then come back to me if she needed to, and be safe while she was gone. So there's a lot of moving parts. But anyway, I'm going to check in with everyone because I'm so glad to see some faces I haven't seen. Hey, Jan, how are you? How's our Tonka boy?
Tonka as well. Yeah, I'm much better, thank you. And I'm actually now pet sitting, so I am here with greatest names, Whistle and Dixie.
Whistle and Dixie, how perfect is that? How cool. Well, we've missed you. And I know you've been really busy with your different programs you've been putting on. And I've been crazy, and I apologize. I haven't been able to participate, but I believe I've shared them. I think I have. And I hope you shared them with the entire MAP community.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have been really busy. I'm actually doing an event, and kind of reminds me, the money's it's gonna be a charity, but the money's going to women in distress, which is a domestic violence or organization that helps women. And I'm kind of thinking along, my wheels are turning now that you brought up this topic.
That's why I have this community come together, because all of us have so many diverse but yet tangential pieces that we together can create this movement that's going to be huge. So I'm really thrilled that you might have something that you could bring to the table. So it's great. I'm so glad to have you back, and that Tonka is good. Everybody's here. Sally, how are you? You just got back from the airport.
Yeah, actually, the rental car place. And for those of you who are traveling for Thanksgiving, I could barely pull in to the rental car place. There are so many SUVs and vans waiting to be picked up to transport families. So allow a lot of
Get there
time.
early.
Allow a lot of time to get to where you're going to. So the girls are great. It's like, we have two older girls, and it's a balancing act, like if you want to even leave for 6 hours, you have to make plans for the dogs and make sure that they can get out and that somebody's watching over them. So it's you have to have that network. And unfortunately, my network has kind of fallen apart due to illnesses and Lyme disease and all that here in Connecticut. And I'm like, wow, how can I have 3 people? All 3 are like staggering at the moment. So yeah, it's great to expand that community and find more people.
It really is, because we need to train. I'm coming up to New Jersey in December to speak to the therapy dog community, and I'm going to spread the word there too, because there is a way to engage them in this as well. So being able to speak to communities, being able to bring communities aboard, bring your friends here who might actually have connectivity. It's funny because there's a vet who just posted something about how clients, now this is my mantra, how clients are part of the veterinarian experience. And that's my mantra, because a lot of veterinarians think clients are like the pain in the hiney. And I wrote him right away and said, I'd like to be your friend, because I've been, saying this for years, that we need to change that paradigm. So we're speaking next week, but this is a community that's really going to change the world. I'm going to check in with you, Kieran. I saw you last week, and I know that you're back in Ireland, right? I think. So I love your picture. Who's your friend?
Oh, the internet is terrible here. I don't know why. If I break up again, I think I'll stay mute for the rest, and
Okay.
and we'll come in again next week. But strange word. I'm back basically where I was a few years ago before the Spanish experience, and once again working with a strange mix of a Bernese mountain dog and a Malamute and a Corgi this time. So it's strange the way you tend to end back in the same place, but it's never quite the same.
Nope.
Every
day is
I
different.
think I am going to be.
Yeah,
Debbie, I'm going to stay mute because the Wi-Fi is just dreadful here.
Okay, so we're so glad you're here, period. We're so glad you're here. Connie, it's good to see you. I'm glad you don't have a board meeting or something.
Oh, well, I am too. And you will notice that I have my desk lamp on, and I'm looking at the clock on my computer. It is 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but we have the first of 5 days of rain here finally to begin our rainy season. And it's very cold, as you can see by the way I'm dressed. Of course, you all in the East will laugh. It's 61 degrees outside, but it's like 15 degrees lower than it was just yesterday at this time.
Wow.
But anyway, the rain is very welcome, and we're only supposed to get about 1.5 inches. They were predicting 3 for us. So, a nice, gentle, steady, even rain is a wonderful thing. I am happy to announce, and Karen will appreciate this, that my supposedly multi-purpose farm dog, Wheaton Terrier, my younger one, Casey, is actually an American Kennel Club certified farm dog. He passed his FDC test on Sunday. We went up to the high desert north of Los Angeles, still in LA County, to one of the evaluators' sheep ranch. And so he was actually tested with real sheep and real horses. And he jumped on hail bays and went by a big cedar and a tractor and all sorts of stuff. And he was just absolutely perfect. It was the second evaluator was my dear friend, who's also first VP of our obedience club, and she has a Belgian Turf, and this is through the Belgian Tervuren Club of Southern California. Although she had the only Turf there, and at any rate, so Casey passed. The entire crew of 10, 11 dogs passed, and you will laugh, Deborah, you will appreciate this. The vast majority of the dogs who were tested were actually sporting dogs. There was one golden and there were 5 cockers.
Yeah.
And when I had English setters and cockers as a kid, they were all bird dogs, as far as I remember, and they
Not
were very
hurting
hardy,
dogs. I
but
don't
not
know
hurting dogs. So Mr. Casey and his buddy Kip, the Belgian Turf, were the only bona fide herding breeds, recognized herding breeds, who were represented. But everybody had a wonderful time, and so Casey's official.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, we're so glad. Congratulations, Casey. You've hit one out of the park, my friend.
Absolutely. Along with all his other obedience and his confirmation titles, he is actually a multi-mission farm dog.
Yay. Good job. Good job. Well, we're glad you're here because I know you'll have a lot to add to the discussion on how to foster in emergencies, because it really is important and we have to be part of the community in order to do that. So let me check in with Susan and Maggie. Hopefully things are going better, Susan. Hopefully you've gotten in touch with Dan.
I'm intrigued by what Connie was just talking about, the certified farm dog, because I'm wondering if that might be something that Maggie could do. I feel like she has incredible energy. She's very difficult to manage. Her bark is incredible. So directing all that energy into something productive, constructive, like a certified farm dog, I think that's fantastic, Connie.
Yay.
Well, thank you. But Susan, let me tell you, my dogs are obedience trained from the time they're 4 or 5 months old. And Casey has that many obedience titles at the end of his
name,
at the end of his right half of his name.
Yeah.
And so your dog absolutely has to be under total control, totally obedience trained and quiet. So I don't think, in all honesty, I hate to say it, I don't think it's the right thing for Maggie.
Right now. So if you ever were able to create that opportunity, that might be the door that opens her to more obedience training, because she might like having this job to do.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And I strongly feel that, I often joke when we're just going crazy with the barking that we're going to send her to the farm.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we say.
Well, you can always look into a trainer who will get her where she needs to be and absolutely help you train her to get her where she needs to be. Because, of course, we can send our dogs to trainers. However, unless we know how to do it, it definitely is not as effective for them. So
that's correct.
Stay with it. Stay with Dan. I think he's been the best answer. I don't know when you're moving. Hopefully you're moving closer to him, not further away. But I
am going to be closer to him, actually. And so, but it's going to be a while because the house hasn't even been started yet. So,
well, good. So keep in touch with him, because every day that you create consistency for Maggie and the training and consistency, it gets you one step closer. Because as some of you might know, I now have a almost 6-month-old English Cocker Spaniel. I've gone to the dark side. Not that they're bad dogs. I like them very much.
They're great dogs.
They're great dogs. And this dog read the fine print, which said, "You are Jim's dog, my husband. You're Jim's dog." And so she is Jim's dog. I have done very little with her other than remember to let her out. Most people will forget to let her out. And then she might have a little bit of an accident every once in a while. But they learn by picking up. the people, not the dogs. And she's getting much better. She actually is incredibly clean, and she goes to bed at 9 and wakes up at 6, and she's really good. And she's crate trained to the point where she doesn't bark at all from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 in the morning, which is great. And she will, I hope, never sleep in my bed, because Junie, my oldest, my 7-year-old male, not too sure this is something he wants in his life.
Yeah, he's not going to share.
And she doesn't have very good boundaries yet. She thinks that biting him in the face is the cool thing to do, and I think she might lose her life. And I keep correcting her and holding him off and telling him he can't do it either. But always bringing another dog into the house is a big thing. Stephanie, how's Yoda? How are you?
Good, thank you. Yoda's doing really well.
Great.
Yeah, the Canadian and Torontonian weather is pretty nice so far with the fall season, as we're heading closer and closer through to November, and now December pretty soon.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah. I would say recently we've been really enjoying tuning into this YouTube channel called Lucky Ferals, and they showcase like every day in the life of like family of cats and things like that. So we tune in pretty much daily, and they have a lot of great like content and really awesome ways for like our family to continue learning.
It really is important. When I lived in New York, I helped a wonderful group called the Cat Protection Council of Westchester, which TNR'd all the local community cats. They hated calling them ferals. They liked calling them community cats, because it wasn't their fault that they were out there. And they said, they're part of the community because people release cats that are unspayed or unaltered, and then they have more cats, and then they become feral because they have to, survive. So I'll have to check that out, Lucky Ferals. But it is amazing how, if you take care of a colony, how the colony takes care of the neighborhood with the mice and the vermin and things like that. So there is a give and take. If you, and the colony slowly disappears with age and natural causes or unnatural causes, because we have cars and trains and things usually where they're hanging out. But if you let them live in their colony, spayed and altered, not proliferating, it really does become something that, it's symbiotic. I had no idea how well that worked together. But then again, that's part of the, system that I have luckily been part of, where people are working together to help the animals. So tonight we were going to chat about, and we started at the beginning, to chat about how to build a foster network for the Ds, right? Because if you can't find a caregiver, which you hopefully can find 3, and as Sally has pointed out, they can get sick, they can move away, they can, move into a building where they can't have your pet, become incapable of being able to care for your pet. So you always have to keep on top of that. But if there was this foster network, and I know I've spoken to several people now in the domestic violence and the assisted living situations all over the world, because I'm talking to Ben Johnson in England, I'm talking to Valerie Adams, who's been on here as a guest a few times. I'm speaking to 2 or 3 veterinarians now who are talking about fostering and the rescues. It's a thing with it's a thing with a lot of moving parts, because if you're going to build a foster system, you have to be able to monitor who the people are who are fostering the pets, whether or not they will return the pets when the person is then able to take them back, how that works, how to maintain communication with the person whose pets are being fostered. So if you are being evicted, or you're very ill and can't take care of them, the Ds, right? Domestic violence, you're deployed. How do you set up a system whereby your pet is cared for. It really is an important piece. And so, Jan, I was glad or thrilled to hear that you're working with a group with your wonderful program that handles people suffering from domestic violence. And maybe we can think about collaborating on that, because there are groups that may be able to be tapped into, both purebred dog groups, rescue groups, and other rescue groups who might not even know they have the ability to do this. What does everybody think? Anybody have any insight? Have they fostered a pet for someone else? I know, Sally, you watched your neighbor's pet while he was recuperating. That was sort of a fostering situation. It worked out really well. Not so well, I think, but yes, Connie.
Well, three suggestions, and then a couple of ads. First of all, and this is primarily for those of you who have purebred dogs, because I've worked rescue on the purebred club side. First of all, your first place, if you got your dog from a breeder, he or she is your first call. As you know, Deborah, I'm preaching to the choir. Even if it's for a temporary situation, like surgery or a broken arm or leg, or whatever, back injury, your breeder should be your first call, and typically he or she will be able to take your dog back. The second call is your local breed club, even if you're not a member. Now we have either breed clubs have their own totally integrated rescue teams within the club, or else they have an affiliate organization that is a no-kidding charity. As Deborah knows, all purebred dog clubs are under the IRS code, social and recreational clubs. And as I have discovered, being treasurer of both local and national, IRS doesn't look real kindly upon dog clubs having purebred dog clubs having rescue as one of their core missions. So we separated both on the local and the national level for the Wheaton clubs. We separated our rescue arms out into two separate entities that are still affiliated. In other words, we talk, we refer, and members of one are members of the other.
Keep track of things. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. If you want to foster, it has to be an organized group. It can't be
exactly.
It has to be
exactly. So organized. Again, a foster can either be, you have to place the dog permanently, or else it's a temporary situation, like a family issue, family illness, or else an illness or a surgery with you, or something of that ilk. Again, your rescue groups affiliated with your breed clubs, first on the local level, I would go, secondly on the national level. Now, two of the D's, disaster and domestic violence. I am happy to announce that in the state of California, we are working at the state legislature level on doing something about keeping your animals with you if you have to go into a shelter. The state of California just passed Assembly Bill 1215. Getting the bill numbers mixed up. 781 this year, and Governor Newsom signed it into law to allow people in emergency situations, natural disasters of which we are the capital state, to take their dogs into cats into designated emergency shelters, and even, for instance, onto city, county, or state fairgrounds to take your livestock. So and keep track of them, and be able to retrieve them after the emergency situation is dispensed with. Now, the second bill, that's disaster. The second bill, domestic violence, was passed unanimously by both houses of the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, but Governor Newsom vetoed it based on budgetary reasons this year. But it's going to be reintroduced, redropped at the beginning of the 2024 legislative session. It is Assembly Bill 1215, and it allows victims of domestic violence to take their animals with them into a shelter. Same circumstances, small companion animals go in the shelter with the people, and large animals, go to a fairgrounds kind of situation. But that said, AKC is backing this bill as well as AB 781. And what anybody might do is check to see if these types of laws are either on the books or they are pending or can be introduced. Call up your state senator, state legislator, whoever, and say, hey, we need this to happen, because that's exactly how it happened in California. It was a grassroots thing. So I just throw those three things out on the table. If you need to either foster an animal or have the ability to take your animals with you in an emergency situation.
That's really great. I know New York has some pending as well, or they've passed a few where, and they have a few domestic violence shelters that allow you to take your pets with you. There's always that issue that that shelter isn't anywhere near you, or there are people at the shelter who are highly allergic, or highly afraid of pets, even little 20-pound chihuahuas or 10-pound chihuahuas or 5-pound chihuahuas. So, it's wonderful that we are recognizing the animals can go with you and should be able to go with you. So as an ex-assistant district attorney, thank you, God, I know that sometimes they follow the people who have the pets. So if there is a common ground, especially if you have horses and they know that you'll take them to the fairgrounds, you're not going to be safe. And your horses aren't going to be safe. So finding a foster that is unknown to the violent party is key as well in these issues, because you either need to go to a domestic violence shelter that takes your pet so that it stays with you, or it goes to a foster that you don't know. So in my experience, being able to find a friend of your breeder's to give your dog to, so that your breeder can honestly say, no, I don't have Deborah's dogs and I don't know where they are, and being able to have them stay safe. It seems to all of us to be, oh my God, you're being a little over dramatic. However, I know I'm not. And so we need to be able to have fosters who we can trust, who we don't know, which seems to be sort of apples and oranges. But we need to make sure they're trusted by the foster organization, but that cannot be traced to you, so that your pets can be confiscated, or worse, the foster caregiver is injured. You don't want that to happen either. So that's why this is such an important topic, at least for me. And I think for all of you, because you're all such wonderful, caring people, that to collaborate on who we know, what we know, and how we might be able to spread this. I'll keep you guys posted on I believe it or not, 7 people that have popped up connecting with me or me connecting with them that are fostering this foster program, because it is absolutely key. I know I said before that Sally had been watching her neighbor's dog while he was in the hospital, and it really was something that she did because she loves him, but it was a little difficult with the girls, because the girls are the girls, and they need to have their principality to themselves, so to speak. So you have to pay attention to that as well if you're a foster. Sally, do you have anything else to add about that?
I think, as we pointed out in former meetings, I was just surprised when I walked by his refrigerator and it said, heaven forbid, if I should pass away, Sally will take my dog forever. And I was like, oh, I love the dog, but I hadn't planned on having 3 dogs. So clear communication, with our local shelter, we just took in 5 dogs from one family, and kind of thought they were, they had to get their bearings again. they were homeless, but all the dogs are in the shelter right now and they're together. And it's like, it's such a difficult time right now with the economy the way it is and the food shortages and whatnot. So just spell it out as clearly as you can.
And there are a number of shelters now, which we've talked about on various Wednesdays. There are a number of shelters now that are enabling drop-offs without surrender, which is probably what these people are taking advantage of. Because I get it that, the shelter doesn't want to have to hold on to a dog that's highly adoptable, right? Very well trained, a family pet, if they can't keep it. Yet if they are just falling on hard times, if you can set a time frame, 6 months, a year, whatever, because it's not really great for the dog to be in a shelter if it's a family pet who's never been in the shelter before, or even worse, if it's been in a shelter, been adopted, and now it goes back. They get pretty shell-shocked when they go back. I know that my dogs, when they go on the road with the handler and they come home and then they go back on the road with the handler, they're like, well, I really like my handler, but why am I not in my bed anymore? What did I do? So it really is, the animals change with their environment. So it's really, really important to consider. So I'm going to go around and ask everybody what their thoughts are. Kieran, type in the chat if you want me to call on you. I'm going to start with Jan. What are your thoughts, Jan? Because you're doing a program on domestic or helping domestic violence survivors or, people who need something. What are your thoughts? Because if they have pets involved, how do we connect them with or help build a community where they can get the support they might need?
Yeah, I the more I'm listening to this conversation, the more I'm thinking of education, because I think that part of it is that, yeah, you can set up the groups or people who will foster, but the people who are in the facilities, these domestic violence situations, have to be aware that they are available and that people are willing to take people's animals, or that there are places, safe places for these, for these individuals to go. And so I think once it's actually set up, we're going to need like massive, education as to,
you're absolutely right.
As to the availability, because it's great to have them set up, but a lot of these situations are very stressful and very kind of like 911 type situations. So there has to be a really good system in effect to have it be implemented.
And I love that because, I think that more than likely what Connie was talking about that California is doing is going to be codified, is going to be put in. But you're right. These are emergency situations where you have to react in the moment. And it's interesting to know that there are so many groups around, the rescue groups, the breed groups, local charities of some sort around that could be connected, like you know me, know Connie, know about, breed things now that you probably never knew about before. And if we can educate and tell people, ask around your neighborhood if you're in the domestic violence world. That's why I'm reaching out to my domestic violence coordinators, the ones that work in the DA's office with domestic violence, and saying to them, listen, I get it that, this is one more thing you don't want to have to do. Your bucket is full trying to make sure that your client is safe. And if you can easily connect with a local cat breeder or a local dog breeder who can put you in touch with the network, and in that network, there are people who can foster a dog. Just being able to know the network exists, which before we started the MAAP community, possibly everyone on this call, except for maybe Connie and probably Sally, didn't know that there were purebred dog clubs that took in rescues that, you return it to your breeder, or if you even have a halfway decent, mixed breed dog, you could call the poodle club or the, retriever club. And I don't know that anybody would turn away a dog because it's a Labradoodle or a Golden Doodle in the middle of a domestic violence issue. I think that, we're not going to stand on ceremony if we can help somebody out. I don't think there's anybody in the dog world who would stand on ceremony. And I'm also going to reach out to the AKC to see what they can do, because I know they've done a great deal of work with sexual harassment in the dog show world. So maybe we can also add domestic violence to the dog show world as well, because I know that there isn't any world in this world that doesn't have domestic violence, unfortunately. So to me, being able to build a foster network that helps people get away and helps them keep their pets, because, it's bad enough, especially if you have children, to have to get up in the middle of the night and leave and not know where they're going, but to either leave their pets behind to whatever fate they might have, or to have their pets dropped off at a shelter. It's traumatizing. And if we can limit that trauma, I think that's what we can try to do. And I'll keep you all posted. And any ideas or any connections you all have that I could tap into, please, write me, let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. Just write, Hamilton Law and Mediation, and there's a contact us there, and share it with us. So wrapping up, because of course we always run out of time, but I'm so glad we do. What are your final thoughts, Sally? I'm going to go to you and see what your final thoughts are.
I don't know that much about domestic violence, but I totally support everything you're talking about. It's beyond my comprehension to imagine something like that, with my pets. And what would I do with the pets and not knowing where they're going? So I support you, but I really don't know much about that field.
We'll have to check in with Audrey when she's feeling better to see what she can help us do in Connecticut.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Susan, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I have not had any experience with domestic violence, but I would think that if someone is a victim of domestic violence, that the pet or the dog or the cat would be very important to that person, because maybe they see that dog or cat as sort of a lifeline and for them. And so doing anything possible to preserve their well-being is very important. And if that system can work, I think maybe finding the people willing to do it, though, may be the real challenge. And
I love the part, Jan. Thank you. Yeah, it will be a challenge, but you know what? Grassroots start huge movements. So I'm never one to say, oh, but it's so hard. Yeah, it is. But there are so many little organized groups within the Purebred Dog Club, within the Rescue Dog Club, within, the ASPCA. And the good news is I know so many people that I'm going to really reach out, and I might have a weekend meetup to see what we can do as a team to really, start the ball rolling with some of the people that I've met. I might do that come 2024. Just have a Saturday for maybe 2 or 3 hours brainstorming what we can do to create this, to implement it at the grassroots level, which means at the police level, at the DA's level, at the dog club level, so that we can all work together. Stephanie, what do you think?
So personally, I've tried to sort of rechannel some of those types of energies into kind of like caring for the seniors in the community. And once I sort of opened up that type of communication, there were some resources in regards to like seniors with pets that would have like transportational services for them. So I've been trying to like focus mainly on how to best support seniors with pets. And I think that has sort of like helped a lot to sort of like level out some of those like maybe like differing opinions or maybe even just like certain needs and certain ways to sort of care. And I also really agree with what Jen was saying in terms of education and trying to sort of stay up to date on what's like most readily accessible to most people, like going to the library and picking up some of the recent magazines that focus on pets and animals as well.
You know, that's so commendable because it's not just domestic violence, it's older people as well. They've created this fostering group for older people as well, where, you know, like we didn't know this, that you live a better life if you live with a pet. And yet some older people either can't afford a pet or can't have it full time. But then they foster the pets in shelters. And then when the pets are, you know, acclimated to living in a house, they move on or they don't, which we of course all know is a foster fail, right? So they stay where they are. However, the amount of mobility and their cognitive research shows that people who have pets stay more active and have their cognitive facilities for a greater length of time. So it's commendable. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for reaching out to the older groups, because like the guy at the not independent living said to me, well, I don't mind asking a young person to take care of my dog if something happens to me, but I certainly don't want to take care of theirs. And I go, well, I don't know that that would be a problem for them. They might say, sure, because, you know, Fluffy loves, you know, Scooter. So that would be great. But I'm so glad you've reached out, and please keep us posted on that because that's fabulous. And then I think Connie, I went to Jan already. So to wrap up, didn't I or not?
Yeah, Jan.
Okay.
I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, as Jan and you undoubtedly know, a lot of people, particularly women, are reluctant to leave an abusive situation because they don't want to leave their pets behind. And of course, research has shown time and again that abusers start with abusing animals, and then they hit members of their families. So the ability to be able to take the victim's pets with him or her is absolutely paramount, because it gets the victim and the pet or pets out of the abusive situation. So that's number one. Number two, Deb, you were mentioning that in certain shelters, they will take your dog on a temporary foster basis. Let me absolutely emphasize, check with your shelters first, because for instance, in Los Angeles County, and this has made national headline news, our shelters, as we all predicted during COVID, when everybody was home, you know, working on Zoom like we are right now, oh, let's get a puppy. And breeders, I'm sure you were one, Deborah, breeders were having their phones ring off the hooks, their emails explode. Oh, I want a puppy. Do you have any? And we all knew what was going to happen. The Los Angeles County and Orange County, right south of us, shelters in Metro LA are absolutely bursting at the seams, to the point where in Los Angeles County, it is a crisis. And the first thing, of course, that shelters do when that happens is they start euthanizing perfectly happy, healthy, adoptable animals. And that is criminal. So please check with your shelter situation first to make sure that they have a program, like you said, Deborah, and that they have it well structured, and that you can definitely get your dog or cat back.
That is great information, because absolutely you have to make sure that it's well structured, because mistakes happen, accidents happen, and pets are put to sleep that aren't supposed to be put to sleep. So you really need to make sure that they have a separate, distinct program away from the shelter per se, where these, you know, fosters of pets are. So you have to really do your homework. Always better to give it to a foster who is someone who's a neighbor or something, especially in a non-domestic violence situation, so that the animals can't be found by somebody. So you really want to make sure that this is all great. I'm also going to put in the show notes, so that if you get the show afterwards, the link to the Link Coalition, Phil Arkow. He has done studies, I think, for the past 20 years. He and I have spoken on a number of occasions. The link is between animal abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, and elder abuse. If they start with animal abuse, if the punishment would be indicative of recognizing the issues that the person has that allows them to abuse animals, then we nip it in the bud. However, we don't necessarily have any sort of corrective means on the books for people who are convicted of animal abuse. They get a fine, they maybe go to jail for a year, it's on their record, but there's no real penalty for abusing animals. And I know that, if any of you remember the Michael Vick conviction, he went to jail, I think, for 24 or 36 months. He paid a fine, and then went back and played football. And, he should have been the poster child for changing the way the laws are applied. And
absolutely. And about 200,000 of us wrote to the National Football League because of it.
And had he, so going to jail and paying a fine were useless to him. It was not something that anyone saw as taking accountability and responsibility for what he did. Had they required him to do community service where he was cleaning out shelters with being accompanied, not that he would, be left. And if he had spoken out about animal abuse and how it ruined his life, to people who are in that genre, right? Who don't think, fighting animals is a bad thing. We could have done much more with his experience than we did. I always say that and get a lot of pushback for this. I said, we should never have charged him a dime or put him in jail. We should have required him for the next 10 years to speak about how abusing animals changed his life, and how if he had to do it over again, he would never have done it, because it is so much more impactful to young people and older people to see someone say, I did this, it's wrong, and no one should do it, as opposed to just punishing them and letting them get away with it. And from that soapbox, I'm going to say goodnight. I love you all. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. I will see you all, I think, after Thanksgiving, or maybe it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Nope. I think it is the 30th. I will see you on the 30th. Don't eat too much. Make sure you keep the bones away from our cats and dogs. Not good when they're cooked. They can eat them when it's raw. If your dog or cat pulls it off the stove before it's cooked and eats it, they're okay. No worries. That's a raw diet. So anyway, love you all. Happy Thanksgiving and take care. This is Deborah Hamilton, and you've been part of the MAAP community. Take care.